Good morning, this is Dr. Turner for Integrated Math 1. Today we're covering 6.2 relative frequency tables. This is building on our concept of two-way frequency tables that we discussed in 6.1. If you're not familiar with what a frequency table is, you might want to go back and watch the 6.1 video before you start this one. 6.2 is looking at relative frequency tables. Relative frequency tables are determining the relativity of each probability or value inside a two-way frequency table. So you're taking the total number of people surveyed or interviewed, etc. You're considering that to be 100%, and then from that, you're taking each row and column and determining what the, as the name might suggest, the relative frequency is of each of these occurrences. So we're actually going to go back to what we did in 6.1. We talked about what quantitative and qualitative data are. We don't need that for our purposes right now, so we'll go ahead and delete that. But a relative frequency table is constructed from a frequency table. Just like we did in example 3 on the 6.1 video, it might involve having to fill out the missing rows and columns before you have a complete two-way frequency table. Then when you go to construct the relative frequency table, again, what you're doing is you're taking the total number of people surveyed and you're considering that to be 100%, right? 100% of everybody that was surveyed, and you want to know what the percentage was of each other group that was surveyed. So if I were to construct a relative frequency table, it's going to look very similar. I'm going to have the same titles going down my row and column, but instead of having numerical values here on the inside, what I'm going to have are decimals. If you're talking specifically about probability, the directions may ask you to specify that it is a percentage, but typically we're going to write these as a decimal value. Remember that to convert a percent to a decimal, you're just moving the decimal place either 2 to the right. If you're going from a percent to a decimal, or vice versa, move it 2 to the left if you're going from a percent to a decimal. Okay? So our total here on a relative frequency table is always going to be 1. That represents 100%. Okay? Then, to find all these other values that go in the table, you're going to take the number there, let's say 20, and you're going to divide it by 100. Now, because percent, by definition, is parts per 100, and on examples 1 and 3, I have a total of 100, it makes the conversion very easy, right? It's already out of 100, so if I do 20 divided by 100, I'm just moving the decimal over 2 places. So this would be 0.20, 0.15, 0.35, 0.40, etc., etc. Okay? So if the total is 100, that makes this very easy. It's a little bit more involved if the total is something other than 100, but we'll see that in example 2. Okay? So divide everything by the total. That gives you what is known as a relative frequency table. Some questions will ask you to construct a relative frequency table. In these instances, you really do need to be using the equation editor and your tools in Schoology to be able to do that. If for some reason it's not working or you get an error, you can do it on paper and then submit a screenshot to me. So once you have the relative frequency table, that's half the assignment. The other half of the assignment will ask you to say, what's the probability of blank? So each of these decimals represents a percent. So let's say, for instance, I asked you, what's the probability that someone at random ordered pizza? So out of those 100 people, I want to know what the probability is that someone I choose at random ordered a pizza. So I will go to the total people that ordered pizza in this relative frequency table, that's 0.60. And so then the total, therefore, would be 0.60 as a percent. You're going to move that decimal over 2 to the right, and it will make this readable. So the probability that someone ordered pizza would be 60%. 0.60, move the decimal over twice. Probability is 60%. What's the probability that someone ordered hot dog and a soda? So again, I'll find that in my table. Hot dog and soda is 0.25. As a percent, then, that's 25%. So you're constructing your relative frequency table, and then you're using that to calculate probability looking at the percentages. In example 2, now here I have a total of 200, so it makes it slightly harder, but not by much. I'm simply taking each of these values and dividing it by 200 instead of 100. So that will take a little bit of work on our part. You can use a calculator if you need to. On the top left there, glasses and fiction, 100 divided by 200, whether I'm doing a calculator, I'm doing it by hand, that would give me 50%, or 0.50. 50 divided by 200, that's 0.25. And just like the regular frequency table, our relative frequency table, each row and column still needs to add up. So if it doesn't, it means you've made an error. 20 divided by 200, 30 divided by 200, 50 divided by 200, etc. And like I said, each row and column needs to add up. Your total in a relative frequency table at the bottom right will always be 1, which is representing 100%. And then same thing, I could ask you questions about the likelihood of something happening. So what's the probability that a person at random prefers fiction? So I'll go to the total on fiction, that's 0.75, or 75%. Probability that someone has no glasses. Go to the total for no glasses, that is 0.40, or 40%. And just to wrap it up, we'll do example 3 here for our relative frequency table. So again, take each of these. Take each of these and you're dividing it by the total. If your total is 100, as I mentioned, I mean, that's like the easiest example you can do. It won't always be, sometimes you'll have larger numbers, but like we did in example 2, if it's not 100, then you're just dividing. But 100 is nice because all we really have to do is just move the decimal over 2 places. So 0.15, 0.35, 0.50, 0.45. Careful, remember you need to move the decimal over twice. So if I had 5 as a decimal, that'd be 0.05. 0.50, 1, 0.40, 0.60. So again, okay, looking at this table, probability of someone that ordered a hot dog and a soda, if I ask you to calculate that. Say hot dog and soda. And go to where those two intersect. That's 0.05, so as a percentage, the probability is 5%. Probably that someone ordered a soda. Go to where the total for soda is. That's 0.40, so 40%. And that's pretty much it for relative frequency tables. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to me. Otherwise, have a good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.